Good morning. Today we are convening for FirstNet's combined board and committee meeting. This is our annual quarterly meeting in which we will take up the organization's budget for the upcoming fiscal year, in addition to having discussion around program elements. Thank you to everyone who is joining us today for our third board meeting of 2021. We have a limited number of people gathered in person for today's meeting due to restrictions on the number of people who can be present in the room. The public was invited to attend virtually today, and we thank those of you on the line for your participation as well. Before we start the agenda for today, I would first like to welcome a new board member, Ms. Tia Patterson. She is a new OMB designee to the board and serves as OMB's Associate Director for Housing, Treasury, and Commerce, and will be a member of the Finance Committee. While even in normal times, there are probably few places in Washington that are as fast-paced and pressurized as the Office of Management and Budget, I think it would be safe to say that the current budget environment is even more challenging than usual. Despite that, Tia has done her homework and come up to speed very quickly. Tia, you bring a great deal of highly relevant experience to our boardroom, and we're grateful for your willingness to contribute to FirstNet. Welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Tip. Thank you. And I am very honored to be here. FirstNet and what you have done and what you have represented in such a short time, building basically an infrastructure. I had an opportunity to speak with Ed right before the board meeting, and we talked about when people expect to turn on or use communication systems, it's like turning on your water. And so making sure that we're here and available for our first responders is of the utmost importance, and I'm looking forward to learning from all of you and contributing where I can. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. With that, let's turn to the business of today's meeting. Today, we will hear a review of the FirstNet Authority's fiscal 2021 progress and fiscal 2022 financial priorities. We will receive a Finance Committee update to present the fiscal year 2022 budget. We'll vote on a Finance Committee resolution and a board resolution related to the fiscal year 2022 budget. We'll receive a Public Safety Advisory Committee update from PSAC Chair Todd Early. And we will get an Advocacy Committee and Network and Technology Committee update. I'd like to ask our board secretary to call the roll for the board and confirm that each committee has a quorum. Madam Secretary, please call the roll and then read the conflict of interest statements.
All right, I'll mark you as here, Chair. Richard Carrizo.
Present.
Billy Bob Brown, Jr.
Present.
Welton Chase.
Present.
Neil Cox.
Present.
Brian Crawford.
Present.
Billy Hughes.
Present.
Karima Holmes.
Present.
Edward Horowitz.
Here.
Darren Jones.
Present.
Paul Patrick.
Present.
Tia Patterson.
Present.
Matt Slinkard.
Present.
David Zolette. Now I'll read the conflict statement. Prior to participating in the FirstNet Authority combined board and committees meetings today, the board members have reviewed the agenda as well as the conflict of interest guidance provided by the Ethics Law and Program Division of the Department of Commerce Office of General Counsel regarding the conflict of interest standards that apply to the board members. All board members have responded prior to today's meeting that they do not have a conflict and will not need to recuse themselves from participation in any portion of this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. And could you confirm, please, that we do have a quorum for both the board and for the committees of the board?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we do have a quorum for the board as well as the 4 committees.
Thank you. Each member of the board has before him or her the minutes of our May meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to those minutes at this time? Seeing none, I will take a motion that we accept these minutes.
Mr. Chair, Paul Patrick, I move that we accept the minutes.
Is there a second?
This is Karima, second.
Paul Patrick has placed a motion and Karima Holmes has seconded the motion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? please say nay. Are there any abstentions? Hearing none, the May meetings are accepted. Madam Secretary, please make the minutes available to the public following this meeting.
Will do.
We're going to start the meeting now with the fiscal year 2021 review and the fiscal year 2022 priorities. I'll hand the meeting over now to CEO Edward Parkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A little slip of the tongue, what can I say?
I've never heard you called Edward before.
Yeah, no.
My mistake.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. And again, welcome to TIA. Thrilled to have you on board. And thank you so much for all the time you've given up to this point. 2021, FY21 was quite an astonishing year. And before I say anything, I just want to thank the entire FirstNet Authority staff. We went out on March 17th, as much as the country did. And on a dime, we went 100% virtual. I really want to thank our CIO and the entire CIO division, Jim Gwynn and the entire staff from the CIO division. We didn't skip a beat. And that's because, frankly, of the incredible work that Jim and the entire CIO group did. From board members to folks, we have staff from Hawaii over to the New England region, and we were able to accomplish the missions that we set out to achieve in FY21. But again, thank you to Jim, the CIO group, and the entire staff for really stepping up for public safety. That being said, we remain committed to the mission and serving public safety no matter where we are working. And I'm so proud of the organization's ability to adapt, as I mentioned. Thank you to the board for the ongoing support that you provided us. I know many of you were participating virtually in numerous meetings. Paul Patrick, heavily engaged with the tribal working group, which was much appreciated as you were involved prior to COVID. There were really three key areas that we focused on in 2021, and you can see some of those here on the screen before you. Investments was really the primary goal of what we were trying to achieve in 21. Bringing our investments to bear was one of the top priorities, and we did so through the initial upgrade to the core to start off path to 5G, and most recently by delivering 15 more deployable assets, bringing the total number of FirstNet deployables to over 100 in a variety of different forms. These serve public safety's needs in a variety of different challenges. In fact, if you see the image in the middle of the screen there, that's not a cloud. Actually, that's one of the fires that has just broken out west. Quite astonishing when you see what is coming towards folks. So we here in the Washington, D.C. area, we felt the effects of one of the huge fires coming out of Oregon just a couple of weeks ago, where it was choking the atmosphere. So imagine just being on the ground and the incredible men and women of the fire community running towards the fire. We try and do our best to make sure that they have the communications capabilities that allow them to accomplish what they need to do. And it's that engagement with public safety that's so important. We had more than 1,200 virtual engagements with public safety in FY21, and this helped us to guide the improvements to the network so we could have strategic input into public safety's network by public safety, fundamental key cornerstone of what separates our system to anything else in the world. And regarding the network, it really was a banner year in terms of build out and adoption. Band 14 spectrum is now more than 90% built out. We have more than 2.5 million connections on the FirstNet system, over 17,000 agencies. And with new services such as Z-Access, high-powered user equipment, HPUE, FirstNet Push-to-Talk, just to name a few, some of the new features that are unique to the FirstNet system. Z-Access, which was first offered on the FirstNet system, is the first in the world to offer such a capability. And that's an amazing example of how public safety is pushing the marketplace into the direction it needs to go. But it's nothing to sit back on one's laurels. You always have to look forward, and we always have to make sure that we're trying to do the next. And in 2022, we have a number of key priorities that we want to try and really focus down on. The events of the past 18 months have really underscored the growing importance of secure mobile broadband access for all of public safety personnel throughout the country. And we see this on a daily basis with local incidents, weather events, hurricanes, wildfires, and the COVID-19 pandemic, another illustration. I've talked about this over the last 12 months, how 2020 really illustrated why a system like FirstNet is so necessary. And so in 2022, we're really going to be focusing on, again, the core team of the FirstNet Authority people. That's super, super important, without whom none of this would be possible. Our engagements with stakeholders, directing our planning and investments to advance the network based on what public safety tells us they need. And we take a big step forward on those priorities today with the board taking up the FY22 budget to fund our operations and our investment opportunities. So again, just a quick recap when you look at some of the key aspects we're trying to achieve. Holding AT&T accountable for what they promise public safety, really relying on engaging with public safety that acts as the keystone for what we want to try and achieve, taking that information, feeding it into our roadmap, and ultimately making strategic investments as a result. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brian Crawford, Chair of the Finance Committee, to provide a committee update and to present the FY22 budget. Brian, thank you.
Thanks, Ed. I want to thank the members of the Finance Committee for their diligent work during the current fiscal year, monitoring and reviewing the FirstNet Authority's financial execution and its planning and budget development for fiscal year 2022. The FirstNet Authority is more than 3/4 of the way through fiscal year 2021, and Kim and her finance team have provided financial details necessary to track current operations. The authority is on very sound financial footing and is financially well positioned as we approach the next fiscal year. The authority's financial execution during the current fiscal year has been well within the boundaries of the FY 2021 budget approved by the board. This focus on spending only what's needed to achieve mission goals is forecast to produce an underburn balance at fiscal year end, which will then be available to fund future investments benefiting public safety. Looking further forward, the authority's financial plan for FY 2022 provides necessary confidence that the authority will end FY 2022 with cumulative administrative expenses below the cap mandated by the authority's establishing legislation and the operational budget that is below the FY 2021 budget total. And so now I would like Kim Farrington, FirstNet's Chief Financial and Administrative Officer, to provide a brief financial update and more information about the fiscal year 2022 budget. Kim?
Thank you, Brian. Good morning, everyone. The slide you're looking at now on slide 9 provides illustration of our cumulative obligations through July of $60.3 million. The blue line represents our cumulative available budget, and the space between the top of the bar and the blue line indicates that our actuals are under budget through 9 months of this fiscal year. The green line at the top indicates our total budget for fiscal year 21 of $83.5 million. Now switching over to focus on fiscal year 22 that starts October 1. This represents and presents 3 majority buckets for our fiscal year 22 budget allocations that we are requesting: operations, investments, and reserves. On the left side, our operations budget request is $79.3 million. And on the right side, you can see we request a reserve allocation of equal to 1 year's operations budget of $79.3 million. In the middle is our National Public Safety Broadband Network investments request, with $40.7 million being requested in fiscal year 22. So if there are no questions on the 21 execution and 22 budget overview, Brian, I will turn it back over to you to present the Finance Committee resolution.
Thank you, Kim. Outstanding job as always. In order to move forward with implementing the budget, we must vote on 2 resolutions. We will start with the Finance Committee Resolution 28. Through this resolution, the Finance Committee would like to recommend that the board approve the fiscal year 2022 budget as proposed. Before we vote, do any Finance Committee members have any questions about the proposed resolution? Hearing none, we're prepared. Hearing none, we're prepared to vote on Finance Committee Resolution 28. Madam Secretary, would you please read the operative language?
Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Finance Committee hereby recommends that the First Responder Network Authority Board approve senior leadership's fiscal year 2022 budget of $251,840,526 for the 3 major funding categories of FirstNet Authority operations, operational contingency reserve, and reinvestment and network enhancement fund, and $103,448 in network construction fund carryover, balance to absorb any unforeseen and necessary adjustments when the fiscal year end reconciliation is performed. Be it further resolved that the Finance Committee recommends that the Board approve senior leadership's fiscal year 2022 FirstNet Authority operations budget of $79,325,000 on an obligations basis, plus with advance notice to the Board up to a 10% management reallocation allowance from the reserve allocation in the event of unplanned and extraordinary circumstances, operational contingency reserve allocation of $79,325,000, an amount equal to the operations budget for fiscal year 2022, reinvestment and network enhancement fund allocation of $94,087,078 and $103,448 to the NFC on an obligations basis. Should the FirstNet Authority receive any additional resources of income in fiscal year 2022, excluding income from the PSTF and NCF, they will be added to the reinvestment in network enhancement funding category. Be it further resolved that the Finance Committee recommends that the Board authorize senior leadership to enter into the necessary agreements to meet fiscal year 2022 strategic objectives. And be it further resolved that the Finance Committee recommends that the Board authorize senior leadership to reallocate with advance notice to the Board up to a 10% management allowance up to an aggregate of $7,932,500 from the Operations Contingency Reserve funding category in the event of unplanned and extraordinary circumstances. This 10% management allowance may be apportioned commensurate with the $79,325,000 FirstNet Authority operations budget for availability at the beginning of fiscal year 2022.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. May I have a motion to approve Finance Committee Resolution 28 by Finance Committee members?
Yes, this is Tia Patterson, and I move to approve Finance Committee Resolution number 28.
So moved by Tia Patterson. Is there a second?
Yeah, second, Ed Horowitz.
Ed Horowitz makes a second. All those Finance Committee members in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Are there any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion passes. Madam Secretary, will you please make the following resolution available to the public following this meeting? Now I'll turn the floor back over to Chair Osterthaler for discussion on Board Resolution 110. Tip?
Thank you, Brian. The Board is now prepared to vote on Resolution 110, Fiscal Year 2022 Budget. Before we vote, do any board members have any questions about the proposed resolution? Hearing none, we're prepared to vote on Board Resolution 110. Madam Secretary, would you please read the operative language?
Now therefore be it resolved that the Board hereby approves a fiscal year 2022 budget of $252,840,526 for the three major funding categories of FirstNet Authority operations, Operational Contingency Reserve, and Reinvestment and Network Enhancement Fund, and $103,448 in Network Construction Fund carryover balance to absorb any unforeseen and necessary adjustments when the fiscal year end reconciliation is performed. Be it therefore resolved that the Board approves allocation of the fiscal year 2022 budget as follows: FirstNet Authority operations budget $79,325,000 on an obligations basis, plus with advance notice to the Board up to a 10% management reallocation allowance from the reserve allocation in the event of unplanned and extraordinary circumstances, operational contingency reserve allocation of $79,325,000, an amount equal to the operations budget for fiscal year 2022, reinvestment in network enhancement fund allocation of $94,087,078 on an obligations basis, and $103,448 NCF carryover balance on an obligations basis. Should the FirstNet Authority receive any additional additional sources of income in fiscal year 2022, excluding income from PSTF and NCF. They will be added to the Reinvestment and Network Enhancement Fund funding category. Be it further resolved that the board authorizes senior leadership to enter into the necessary agreements to meet fiscal year 2022 strategic objectives consistent with Board Resolutions 78 and 100. Be it further resolved that if the FirstNet Authority has a combined total of more or less than the $250,840,526 remaining and available funds on an obligation basis in the PSTF, NCF, and the FirstNet accounts at the start of fiscal year 2022, then senior management will add or deduct the amount more or less than $250,840,526 from the Reinvestment and Network Enhancement Fund funding category. Be it further resolved that the board authorizes senior leadership to reallocate with advance notice to the board a 10% management allowance up to an aggregate of $7,932,500 from the Operational Contingency Reserve funding category in the event of unplanned and extraordinary circumstances. This 10% management allowance may be apportioned commensurate with the $79,325,000 FirstNet Authority operations budget for availability at the beginning of fiscal year 2022.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. May I have a motion to approve Board Resolution 110?
Mr. Chair, this is Matt Slinkard. I move that we approve Board Resolution 110.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Mr. Chair, this is Billy Bob Brown Jr. I so move.
Okay, we have a motion from Matt Slinkard and a second from Billy Bob Brown. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed, please say nay. Are there any abstentions? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, will you please make the following resolution available to the public following this meeting and the resolution is approved?
Yes, will do.
We'll now have an update from the Chair of the Public Safety Advisory Committee, Mr. Todd Early. Todd?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, board members. It's great to see everybody and be back in person with everyone. So thank you for the opportunity to be here and share the great work of the PSAC that's been happening. It's been a really busy summer and year for the PSAC. So I'd like to start with an update of the strike team progress in 2021. First one being the ICAM strike team. The PSAC is completing its tasking from the FirstNet Authority to provide public safety expertise on ICAM's influence on applications heavily used by public safety. The ICAM strike team has met to discuss the types of applications used by public safety and the best approaches for prioritizing potential inclusion into the FirstNet ICAM ecosystem. These inputs and the group's expertise offered insights into important application and database solutions for public safety, potential challenges, and other considerations for broad ICAM adoption. This group we had a great group of experts that came together to provide this input into the ICAM solution. And I want to thank Frank Manise for his leadership, the entire group. We had members from the PSAC and others that really provided input and really appreciate their input. The results of these discussions will be applicable to the ICAM rollout strategy. And I appreciate, again, all their input and look forward to sharing this with the authority and our AT&T partners in the near future. Regarding the strike team, telehealth strike team, the 2019 telehealth strike team developed an introductory product that provided a mid-level view of telehealth and its ability to be used effectively in public safety. The Centers for Medicaid and Medicare Services selected several healthcare agencies nationwide to pilot the ET3 model, which was delayed due to COVID-19 to January of 2021. The telehealth strike team has developed a project statement and has distributed a survey to stakeholders to understand the use of telehealth in EMS across the country. The results from this survey will be used to gain insight into future uses of telehealth and to lead innovation of the FirstNet network. So great work by those two strike teams. Next thing I'd like to update you on is the Tribal Working Group. There's been significant progress with the Tribal Working Group as well. In 2021, they continue to focus on priorities like creating a tribal subject matter expert database for roadmap data capture that's focused on tribal public safety, updating the Travel Working Group webpage on firstnet.gov, and participating in magazine articles, placements, and podcasts. The FirstNet Authority has had the opportunity to attend the Intertribal Emergency Management Coalition Summit in June. The Authority staff also had the opportunity to travel to the Blackfeet Nation and engage with National Tribal Emergency Management Council's Robert DeRozier, who is one of our longtime and standing Tribal Working Group members. Regarding the Q3 2021 PSAC engagements, July the 10th, PSAC members participated in 3 sessions to support roadmap user experience, domain research efforts, discussing features and aspects of potential new public safety devices. I personally participated in these discussions and really thought the format and feedback in the way it was presented and captured was uniquely targeted and beneficial to the innovation of the network. I was really glad to see this, and I think there was a lot of great input from these experts that were received. These kind of targeted idea exchanges really help the PSAC influence future decisions and reflect the diverse needs of public safety to the authority. Since the last board meeting, we had great attendance at the July bi-monthly PSAC webinar, during which members received a briefing on the FirstNet network usage at high-profile events and incidents like the Virginia State Capitol rallies in January of 2020, the Something in the Water Music Festival, the U.S. Capitol riot, and the Surfside condominium collapse in Florida. The PSAC will convene next week on the 26th for its August business meeting to discuss the work of the PSAC has accomplished and what is ahead for the PSAC. Mr. Chair, before I close out, I would also like to share that this will be my last meeting, my last update to the PSAC board, as I've chosen to retire from the Texas Department of Public Safety at the end of this month, and therefore will step down chairing the PSAC at the end of this month. I really enjoyed my time on the PSAC for the last almost 3 years, and I want to thank the authority, I want to thank the board, and all the PSAC members for allowing me to be a part of this mission. This mission, is, as you know, is something that I'm very passionate about. It's something that's been one of the most rewarding things in my career to be involved in. I truly believe in this mission. I think it's already changed and will change the way public safety responders respond for many, many decades to come. And truly enjoy and have enjoyed chairing this group and being alongside the many experts that are on the PSAC and from the associations that have this input. I believe it's critically important. Before I close out, I do want to say thank you to previous chairs of the PSAC, Harlan McEwen, Tom Sorley, and Paul Patrick for the groundwork that they laid. I was able to continue that, and you know, they did great work as chairs. But I'd also like to thank Ed Horowitz, yourself, Tip, and Ed Parkinson for allowing me the honor to do that. It's been a great honor. I appreciate it, and I know that there's a lot of talent that will come up and be able to continue on to this success. Kenzie will be in touch with the PSAC members about the leadership transition in the coming days. And I want to thank you for your time again today and for allowing me to provide this update.
Thanks very much, Todd. Operating in a complex federal environment, the First Responder Network Authority will always be buffeted by political priorities, changing political priorities, competing bureaucratic interests, and so forth. Even understanding these forces, the legislature created FirstNet and created the PSAC in order to make sure that we sort of stayed on task. The purpose was always for public safety to remain front and center in the conversation, and the PSAC was created for that purpose. It's not easy in a 25-year program execution window to actually maintain focus on where you started. Quite often you end up successfully pursuing some alternate objective, and I've been in programs that very well achieve the wrong things. The PSAC is here to make sure that can't happen with FirstNet. And during your tenure as the PSAC chair, you've been the lead spokesman for the public safety community, and the results, I think, speak for themselves. On your watch, FirstNet has grown from an aspiration to a live network serving tens of thousands of agencies and millions of subscribers. Despite that explosive growth, you've kept the authority laser focused on the needs of public safety. Your wise counsel and Texan common sense will certainly be missed. And on behalf of the authority, the board, and the public safety community, I want to thank you once again for your PSAC chair leadership. We hope that we will see you in the future supporting this project in some capacity, and I'm confident that you'll continue to serve with a single-minded focus the best interests of the public safety community. So thank you, Todd, very much. With that, let's move to an update from the Advocacy Committee, and I'll turn this over to Vice Chair and Chair of the Advocacy Committee, Rich Carrizo. Chief?
Appreciate it, Tip. Thank you. Todd, I just want to say congratulations to you and echo all of Tip's comments. You've done an outstanding job, and we just all want to thank you and wish you much happiness and health in your retirement. And like Tip said, I know you're not going anywhere, but FirstNet is a serious mission for all of us. They're public safety responders, and they'll always be there to help us move this forward and make it the best system for all public safety. So just want to congratulate you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you. I'll let Jackie Miller-Waring discuss a little bit more in detail about some of the things that the engagement team has done over the past quarter. But during this quarter, we were able to do a lot of conferences back in face-to-face. Some of those include the International Association of Fire Chiefs, Fire Rescue International last month, the National Sheriff's Association, the Major County Sheriff's Association, and the Fire Department Instructors Conference, which just happened. I know this week we're also, the team is just coming back from the Association of Public Safety Communications Officials, APCO. I know Billy Bob's down there right now and has some trouble getting out of San Antonio yesterday to be with us, but glad he's with us now virtually. Conferences have not only been a great way for FirstNet Authority to learn and connect with first responders, but it's really important for us to all hear as a board what's going on with public safety. Not just their operational issues, but what works and what doesn't work with FirstNet and how we make it the best system for them. This is their system. We're also working on planning efforts for some upcoming major conferences. EMS Today is coming up, which is scheduled for the end of August. The International Association of Chiefs of Police and the International Wireless Communication Expo is planned for September, and FirstNet will be a part of that, all those conferences. Since our last board meeting in May, the Advocacy Committee has taken a direction where we hear back from public safety officials during our Advocacy monthly meeting. Some of those that we've heard from so far has been the Public Safety Communications Director from Grenby County, Illinois, the Emergency Telephone System Board, and Executive Director from the National Tribal Emergency Management Council. We're very grateful that these people have been able to come on our call, give us some insights, and share their experiences, both positive and negative. So again, we can learn from them and develop best practices and develop this system to be the best system. At this time, I'd really like to turn it over to Jackie Waring. She is our acting Chief Market Engagement Officer to provide information about our engagement accomplishments we've had over this last quarter. Jackie?
Thank you, Chief Carrizo. Our team supports every part of the FirstNet experience as illustrated on this slide. Our team leads the FirstNet Authority's engagement with public safety entities and associations, the PSAC, industry, and government. And our goal is to understand their trends, drivers, and priorities. We collaborate with public safety to realize the operational benefit of the FirstNet experience. And leveraging public safety and other stakeholder input, we supported the development and update of the FirstNet Authority roadmap and continually promote the roadmap concept and priorities during stakeholder engagements. We also support investment efforts in the network to further differentiated FirstNet experience. Starting in the top left quadrant of our slide here, I'm going to talk a little bit about the success in the third quarter of 2021. Our team continued to meet with stakeholders to get feedback on the network and advocate FirstNet experience. Our team conducted 463 engagements, 85 of those being with a national audience. We were able to reach 11,000 stakeholders through these engagements, and our team was able to document 564 items of feedback that ranged from topics like operational needs, current uses of the FirstNet technologies, applications and devices, as well as some challenges and issues. Moving on to the develop quadrant, in the third quarter, we were able to continue to reach our stakeholders through webinars, focus groups, and one-on-one interviews. Our focus again was on FirstNet solutions and roadmap priorities. In the third quarter, we conducted 11 nationwide webinars on various topics. For example, we hosted a webinar focused on mutual aid. We explored the current state of mutual aid communications and sought to improve public safety's understanding of FirstNet solutions dedicated to enhancing mutual aid, situational awareness, and other webinars, and other webinars that we conducted included situational awareness workshop for Massachusetts. We did a focused virtual engagement on emergency management as well as the subscriber paid program. Additionally, we conducted 26 interviews or focus groups with public safety, including representatives from the PSAC user group. The representation for those 26 interviews and focus groups were across 19 states, from right here in DC out to Kansas, west to California, and out to Hawaii. We wrapped up discussions on the FirstNet app catalog with several PSAC focus groups, and then launched a series of interviews with public safety stakeholders who were frequent users of the Uplift request tool. We also conducted interviews to support and inform the wildfire case study and captured feedback regarding FirstNet push-to-talk from known users. As far as investment, we continue to evaluate investment opportunities across roadmap priorities, including coverage, mission, critical services, situational awareness. As was announced earlier this summer with the investment funding getting approved by the FirstNet Authority Board, we've supported the addition of new deployable assets. We continue to receive significant positive impact feedback from the public safety community on the deployable program, and seeing a lot of excitement for the new compact rapid deployables. Those 15 new assets of 10 SAC Colts, the 2 compact rapid deployables, and mobile communication centers all enabled us to increase that fleet to the 100 that Ed mentioned earlier. We also are looking at other ways to invest our time and resources. For example, in May, at the SAFECOM NICSWIC joint session, we received support to facilitate the development of a mutual aid framework that addresses talk group organization and governance that will ensure first responders can communicate effectively and efficiently when jointly responding to an event. We identified a NICSWIC SAFECOM working group and have a kickoff meeting scheduled later this month, the week of August 23rd. Our objective for that will be to collaborate with key partners and stakeholder champions to define requirements, determine best practices, and enlist existing LMR mutual aid governance structures to establish, promote, and manage a new broadband-based mutual aid framework. Of the 8 individuals on that initial working group, we're proud that 4 of those members are also members of our PSAC. For Collaborate, we're working very closely on developing new materials based on what the public safety community needs. The FirstNet Authority developed location services videos to be used as on-demand or quick introduction to concepts. One of those videos, using location-based services for public safety operations, sets the stage for how LBS is critical to public safety during responses to in-building incidents, planned events, and active assailant incidents. We've also created mobile field kits. That kit consists of equipment that can be easily shipped or transported to stakeholder engagement locations. The kit is equipped with software and equipment to allow our team to conduct hands-on demonstrations and functions as a mobile experience center that can be utilized at a wide range of stakeholder engagement events. Our field kit is being used, it was used this week at the APCO conference to demonstrate the FirstNet push-to-talk capabilities through hands-on interaction with devices and the network. The team is conducting live demonstrations of group calls, private calls, sending attachments, and other capabilities. We appreciate the opportunity to highlight the work of our team that goes beyond building relationships and providing updates to stakeholders. The results for our work ensure that public safety's voice is clear and present in the operations of the FirstNet Authority. The use cases, operational needs, Focus group feedback, and the in-field experiences that our team captures become critical components that can contribute to the success of our roadmap, investment, and network management teams. That's our market engagement update, and I'll now turn it back over to you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Jackie. Now we'll get an update from the Network and Technology Committee. Neil, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Tip. There's been a lot of progress and major program results to report since our last readout by the Network and Technology Committee in May. We held an excellent committee briefing a few weeks ago, and at that session, we enabled the committee to receive an overview by the FirstNet staff of the spectrum landscape in the United States and provide strategic guidance to the FirstNet Authority to focus on a host of spectrum initiatives and opportunities. One area of particular interest is an exploration of approaches to leverage multiple spectrum bands as the network evolves to deliver 5G services to public safety, which is going to be very important in the future. So in this committee update, Jeff Bratchard, our Chief Network and Technology Officer, will provide a readout focused on the following 4 themes: ongoing momentum in the network deployment, differentiating devices that enable or that are available for public safety first responder users that aren't available to the general public, innovative applications and solutions to operational issues that are faced by first responders, and last, one of the real successes to what we've been able to do at FirstNet is a recent growth in the number of type of deployable coverage assets and solutions that benefit public safety. And it's very important that we understand that Mother Nature and other events causes issues, and the decisions that we've made at FirstNet on deployable assets when the network gets knocked down has been a really an advantage of this network over any other in the world. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jeff. Jeff?
Thank you, Network and Technology Committee Chairman Cox. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great to be with you virtually today. Sorry I cannot be in person due to other commitments here in the Boulder lab. But I would like to thank you, Chairman Cox, for your stewardship and leadership of the Technology Committee for the last several years, as well as the efforts of PSAC Chairman Todd Early for his leadership and involvement. The insights to industry and public safety that you've both provided has been invaluable to the technical and outreach teams here within the FirstNet Authority. We continue to be extremely pleased to see the adoption of the FirstNet network continue to grow at a very aggressive pace. AT&T recently announced in their second quarter earnings that public safety's FirstNet network now serves more than 2.5 million connections across more than 17,000 public safety agencies in the United States. This represents a growth of approximately 15% in FirstNet connections and over 1,000 more agencies from the last briefing that we provided in the May board meeting. A couple of recent public safety agency additions to FirstNet that I'd like to highlight include the Los Angeles Fire Department and the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health. Those agencies are now connecting their firefighters, first responders, and other public safety personnel via the FirstNet network. The Los Angeles Fire Department uses FirstNet on its frontline apparatus, the vehicle modems and routers, as well as department-issued smartphones, while the LA County Department of Public Health Radiation Management use FirstNet services on their smartphones. The expansion of the FirstNet Authority licensed Band 14 spectrum also continues to proceed on an aggressive deployment pace, and AT&T remains ahead of their contractual deployment dates for the radio access network build-out. The challenges faced by public safety over the past year were supported by over 750 asset deployments for both planned and emergency events, including fires, as well as the COVID response efforts. Unfortunately, that pace does not appear to be slowing down and will most likely increase this year with the ongoing challenges of the pandemic, as well as an extremely active wildfire season. Moving to some technology updates, as the FirstNet network and user base expands, the FirstNet Authority and AT&T are working tirelessly to ensure innovation is a component in the new public safety communications technologies and solutions that are being enabled and provided on the FirstNet network. Prime examples of this include our thriving ecosystems that are delivering the devices and applications required by first responders, as well as the investments in and growth of unique deployable coverage solutions that allow the FirstNet subscribers to bring their network with them wherever they may need to perform their life-saving missions. Let's touch on devices. Public safety continues to stress to us their critical need to access a broad range of innovative wireless broadband devices on the FirstNet network. We continue to deliver on this by developing and growing a global device ecosystem. There are now 335 devices in the FirstNet device ecosystem, of which over 80% support the public safety dedicated band 14 spectrum. This is a gain of 28 devices just in the last quarter when we briefed you in May. Driving this growth in the ecosystem are introduction of new smartphones, tablets, rugged handhelds, laptops, and a growing wave of public safety relevant Internet of Things IoT devices, such as FirstNet enabled sensors, gauges, gateways, routers, and modems. The term FirstNet Ready, the logo you see there, means that the device has gone through the FirstNet Device Approval Program for certification by AT&T and acceptance by the FirstNet Authority. It contains the necessary hardware and software to access Band 14 and is compatible with the FirstNet dedicated Evolved Packet Core network. We're also now seeing 5th generation wireless capabilities be included in the latest wave of FirstNet Ready devices, positioning the FirstNet subscribers to take full advantage of this generational shift in wireless capabilities. And this is in support of our investment that was approved last year to ensure that the FirstNet network is 5G ready as well. FirstNet users now that have 5G enabled devices can access the AT&T 5G millimeter wave spectrum bands, as well as the just announced access to their sub-gigahertz 5G spectrum. We're very excited, and as you recall, the legislation that created the FirstNet Authority directed us to ensure public safety's FirstNet network does not remain stranded on legacy technology and does not become outdated. We're fulfilling that direction now as the wireless industry has started the transition from 4th generation to 5th generation networks. Moving on to applications. As with the devices, the feedback we received from public safety again calls for a robust ecosystem of new applications and solutions to address their pressing operational needs. There are now 172 applications and user solutions contained within our FirstNet application catalog. It's particularly exciting to see new solutions for public safety that align to the domains in our FirstNet Authority roadmap, which you can find on our website. In our voice communications domain, a recent announcement includes a second 3GPP standards-based mission-critical push-to-talk solution that will also interoperate with existing land mobile radio systems. This has been announced for release later this year by Motorola Solutions on the FirstNet network built by AT&T. Enhancing the situational awareness is another key element within our roadmap. One of the new additions in the application catalog provides easy-to-use streaming software that gives multiple users access to live stream video and data from drones, submersible robots, dash cams, and other IoT-based devices. In the secure information exchange domain, a leading mobile virtual private network solution has also been added that helps accelerate, optimize, and secure mobile device traffic directly to the FirstNet dedicated core network and provides the resilient connectivity both inside and outside coverage areas. And finally, in the user experience domain, a highly secure group notification and messaging service has recently been announced and available. And this integrates seamlessly with the wide range of notification applications and is another innovative addition to the catalog. To touch on deployables, the FirstNet deployable fleet is a unique capability that has drastically changed how public safety can now bring FirstNet with them and communicate in those situations where there is no coverage. This service is available on a 24/7 basis at no cost to the FirstNet subscribing agencies and is driven by our ongoing direct consultation with public safety. To meet the usage demand, and as Ed Parkinson mentioned earlier, the FirstNet Authority approved an investment last year to expand the size and diversity of the existing fleet of dedicated deployable network assets. And those now number over 100 assets. This past quarter saw the expansion of the number of satellite cell on light trucks, or SATCOLTs, as well as the introduction of 2 new innovative deployable form factors. The first one being communication vehicle, and this can be used for emergency deployments or planned events. And in addition to providing connectivity via band 14 spectrum on FirstNet and or Wi-Fi similar to a SATCOL, these communication vehicles provide an air-conditioned command space for 2 first responder personnel with multiple monitors, television, and charging stations, as well as a large exterior screen and speakers for briefings and situational awareness. Since they are equipped with a generator that can run for multiple days before refueling, the CVs also include a laboratory, microwave, mini refrigerator, and a sleeping bunk for when deployed in the harshest of conditions. The second addition we've had are the micro SATCOLs, the compact rapid deployables, or CRDs, as you'll hear. And those are available to agencies to actually purchase and own as a customer-owned and managed asset. These can be easily deployed by a single technician within a matter of minutes once it arrives on site. So we've added these to the fleet, as well as making them available for purchase by those agencies that want to own their own assets. This agility makes them ideal for supporting firefighters on the front lines as they adjust to a wildfire's unpredictable nature. We're pleased to note that dedicated deployable assets are available to public safety FirstNet users in all 50 states, 5 territories, and the District of Columbia. As the results of the past quarter indicate, the FirstNet Authority continues our focus on innovation and continued reinvestment that benefits the public safety FirstNet users. Mr. Chairman, as I conclude my update, I would like to reiterate that as we have done throughout the life cycle of FirstNet, we always put public safety at the center of our efforts to plan, build, and continue to enhance their network. In support of this, we recently released on August 10th a public request for information, also known as an RFI, that we are using to solicit input from industry and other entities on upcoming advances in off-network broadband communication capabilities. We're seeking this information to understand what over-the-horizon capabilities and solutions could be leveraged to allow public safety FirstNet users the ability to communicate, whether that's via voice, video, location information sharing, or other broadband data in those areas where there is no terrestrial network cover and no ability or a lengthy time frame to bring one of the deployable assets that we mentioned. This is that direct mode functionality and what is being done in the industry on that front. This effort will directly feed our ongoing roadmap updates across several of the domain areas that I talked about earlier. This RFI is open to all concepts and can be found on the federal government procurement website, sam.gov, sam.gov, with a search on next generation off-network communications. This RFI will be open through September 30th, and we encourage all interested parties to respond. With that, this concludes my update, and I will now turn the floor back over to you, Chairman Oster-Thaler.
Thanks very much, Jeff. Before we move into the final section of the agenda here, just a couple of quick administrative notes. I think it's safe to say we'll all be happy when we're back sort of in person without masks in one room and one audio system. So I apologize for the sometimes degradation in the quality of the audio on occasions here in a virtual environment. I'm afraid that's just something we've come to expect, and it's difficult, but the record of this meeting will, of course, be posted once the minutes are approved after the next meeting, so there will be a record of all the consequential discussions and decisions. One other comment, and in working our way through the wordy and complicated to read resolutions, some of the audio may not have been directly in line with the text you're looking at, and some of the text, I'm not sure exactly what version of the text everyone might have been exposed to. So the official versions of both resolutions will be the ones that are posted, and if there's any discrepancies between them, those are the ones that are correct and will govern. So as before I hand this over to Ed, I want to first recognize the contributions of 2 board members who are likely attending their last board meetings as they approach the end of their second terms on the board, and of course the statutory limit is 2 full terms. The 2 people I'm talking about are Neil Cox and Ed Horwitz. They've been fixtures on the board. They've been leaders of the board discussion on almost all the important issues over the last few years. Before I talk about these 2 individuals individually and specifically, I want to reflect for a moment on why we're here. not just here at this meeting, but why the First Responder Network Authority is here, why it was created in the first place. We have only one purpose: provide capable and reliable broadband communications to the public safety community to use in the performance of its full range of critical public safety missions. While the FirstNet Authority is a federal government organization, it was intentionally designed to remain highly responsive to the community it was created to serve. I talked earlier about the role of the PSAC, but another important element of the legislation was the creation of the independent board itself. By creating a governance board consisting of industry as well as public safety professionals, legislators set up a framework to ensure FirstNet can make the best technical decisions while moving at the speed of America's innovative communications sector. But that theory is only good if the right people step up to implement it. Ed Horowitz and Neil Cox stepped up. They both have had extraordinarily successful business careers, and they were both willing to set aside multiple other opportunities in order to get FirstNet through its first few critical years. Neil, with his deep experience in the wireless industry, brought essential technical as well as business experience to his leadership of the Networks and Technology Committee. And Ed, in addition to his term as board chair, chaired the Finance Committee and later the Governance and Personnel Committee. On behalf of the public safety community, the authority, and the board, thank you both for your extraordinary contributions to public safety communications. I think I will first turn over the mic to Ed for any comments you wish to make, Ed.
Okay, how much time do we have?
As much as you need.
Next month, we're going to commemorate the 20th anniversary of the events that took place on 9/11. And as many of you know, it was a day that I was scheduled to be on the top of the World Trade Center to attend the meeting that was moved to Midtown Manhattan only a few days earlier than that. So the opportunity to serve on the FirstNet Authority Board was particularly poignant. So my feelings are bittersweet. 6 years seems like a long time, but it does seem to fly by. At the same time, a lot has taken place. Neil and I came on board just as the objective statements were being solidified, and that led to the issuance of a request for information, an RFI, and then subsequently an RFP, and after a rigorous process, the selection of AT&T as the company that was going to build out under a 25-year contract public safety's broadband network, and that it would be done so in a manner which FirstNet, the authority, would be economically self-sustained as was required under the legislation. The FirstNet Authority is now the firmly established steward of public safety's access to a nationwide broadband network, anchored on Band 14. As 5G deploys, FirstNet's inclusion into this new communications capability will begin based on the investment decision that this board has taken to be 5G ready. However, as service demands expand, additional spectrum will be required. And as the stewards of public safety's network, we have to initiate the work on figuring out how this gets done. Public safety's unified voice is critical here. And this board has a role to play as well. Some final words. First, I'm extremely grateful for the opportunity to serve, and I'd like to thank the past Secretaries of Commerce, Pritzker and Ross, for appointing me to this board for 3-year terms and as chair for a couple of years. It's been a privilege working with the Department of Commerce and with our NTIA colleagues as well, and getting to work with them to help them understand what it means to have an independent public safety broadband network built with both an independent board that operates under federal guidelines. Quite a balancing act. Finally, I'd like to really thank the people of FirstNet, the staff. When we first came on board, there were maybe 20 people on staff, and now there's 240 plus. We've had multiple CEOs. We've had multiple alignments based on adjustments to the roadmap and to the strategy of the company. But throughout all of this, what's fundamentally driven the changes, driven the personnel, driven our agendas has been the mission. And it is this devotion to mission that I am most appreciative of. And of course, I want to thank my fellow board members, both past and present, for the opportunity to serve alongside them. This is an extraordinary organization. I hope you don't lose my phone number after this is all done. I've made friends and great acquaintances here. And it's an amazing opportunity to serve. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Ed. Neil?
Yeah, and when I joined the board, I had learned something later in my career in the business that diversity was very important. And when I came to FirstNet and I saw the diversity of the board, we had people like Ed and myself that came from industry, and I had built wireless networks all around the world. And then to interface with the first responder community, to interface with people from government, it was where the 5 or 7 minds are better than one. And you saw with the board makeup, that's one of the strongest things about FirstNet is the diversity of the board, because when you have diverse minds and diverse backgrounds, you can really develop something very, very powerful. And the second thing that impressed me so much when I joined the board was the PSAC. And Todd, you and Paul, I know are here in the room, but I couldn't fathom how millions of first responders could be brought into one room and represented by a group. In those early days, it was just so focused in getting this license and getting this network built that it just impressed me. I told so many people about what I observed that I saw all of the first responder community come into this one organization called the PSAC, and they were just driven to make this happen. And it was just phenomenal. And my hats are off to all of you that served there. And then I look back as this board, the decisions that we made that led to what we have today. You know, the first decision that we made, and Ed and I were in the room, about were we going to really develop a national network. You know, there were groups that said we should have regions and we should bid regions. And we had $7 billion and 20 megahertz of spectrum, and it's going to cost 30 to 50 billion to build it. So how are we going to build a $50 billion network with $7 billion? Well, we came up with a priority and preemption, and then we got into the room and we had a lot of debate, and the debate said, let's just roll the dice. We're going to do the whole thing, because we thought the advantages to first responders would be better off. Instead of having 7 network operators, we'd have 1. So we rolled the dice, and that has proven to be good. And then there's some hiccups along the road. One hiccup became a point where it was asked, do we even really need this network? We've been years and we hadn't developed it. And I remember going to a meeting with the Secretary of Commerce, and there was some risk about why we still need this network. Why do we need this network? And luckily, just so happened I was from Illinois and Chicago, and the Commerce Secretary happened to be from the same point. And the Cubs had just won the World Series. And she asked the question, says, give me an example of why we need this type of network. And I said, very simple. It's 6 million people on Michigan Avenue after the Cubs won the World Series. There wasn't a cell phone in Chicago that would work. And she got it. And that was the end of that discussion. And we marched on. And then we had all these meetings with all the potential bidders, and we were going around trying to explain why this would be to their benefits of their companies. And those were some exciting times. And then there was the forefathers that developed the whole SPOC thing, which was, I thought, phenomenal, where we had each state represented by this single point of contact, and they were represented, And we had meetings after meetings with, the FirstNet Authority did all these meetings with these SPOCs, and we'd bring them in, because we knew we were going to have to convince them, we wanted them to go as part of the network. And there were things that were going on. There were competitors renting presidential suites in the hotels we were at and things of that nature. But I remember one meeting with a SPOC, and the FirstNet had set it up perfect. They had different groups, and they said, Neil, you got to go over and talk to them on the billing and collections. So I remember meeting with a bunch of SPOCs from the States, and they were all thought they were going to build their own networks and this and that. And I asked them, I said, I've built networks all around the world. I said, I can find anybody to go build these things. That's the simplest thing in the world, to go build this thing. I can go find contractors and technology. But I said the most important thing is what I always worried about was the first time we turned that network on, billing and collections. Can you actually produce an accurate bill and collect it? And it said, you as a state, if you want to be a cellular operator, you're going to have all these agreements, you've got to do all this stuff. And they had never even thought about that. But luckily, it's a remarkable achievement by what was accomplished by getting all 50 states and the 6 territories to sign on to one common network, which is phenomenal for the FirstNet Authority. And it just goes to show how when you put your mind to something, you can do it. But there are, I would like to add on to what Ed said, issues going forward. You got to keep this network modernized. We're in our 5th generation of cellular. We launched the first one in Chicago in 1983, which was generation 1, October of 1983. And we're on the 5th generation. And there'll be a 6th generation and a 7th generation. So the network continues to need to be modernized. The other thing I think is to Tip and to Ed, I learned so much when we took the board sessions out into the customers. And we went to various locations in various cities and had public safety present to us. And one thing that sticks in my mind, because how much you learn by the diverse nature of everybody. We were in Little Rock, Arkansas, and they came in to talk about the mass shooting. At that point in time, and even in my mind, I thought we were looking at using the network to take technology that when there's a mass shooting, look at what type of hospitals had what type of staff on, so we would route the ambulance to the right hospital that had the right person on staff. And that was, I thought, oh, that's simple. I can go get technology people, software developers to do that in a heartbeat. But what we learned from that event by being there in Little Rock, Arkansas, 80% of the people were transported in private cars to the hospital. It was completely different. I don't know if you remember those discussions, but we learned so much. So that application, which I thought as a technology guy was bulletproof, wouldn't have worked in certain cases. So those types of experiences, by taking this meeting out into the community, is invaluable, I think, for all of us. And the last thing, I think we heard it yesterday, is to continue to foster, and Jeff and his team, the development of applications. Because we don't have I'll call it really the killer apps yet for this network. The network is here, we got propagation, but there's going to be applications that will make this network a phenomenal, that will exceed what anybody else can do. And being that the network has its own security, it has its own spectrum, it can develop things that nobody else can do. So I know that Darren's working on that, and with the FBI, and I really do appreciate the knowledge and how to bring this network into applications that works for certain types of environments. And again, it's been a pleasure for me to serve. Like Ed, we've met a lot of you, a lot of people. It's been a real pleasure. At one time, I ran the second largest security monitoring company in the nation called SecurityLink. I never had a business without first responders responding to my alarms. And this was a way for me to give back through my cellular knowledge of building cellular networks all around the world, to give that knowledge back. And it's been a tremendous, and again, the diversity of this board is what makes it successful. So, Tip, thank you very much.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you both for your comments. I'll turn it over now to Ed Parkinson.
Thank you, Tip. Appreciate it. Before I do any other board members want to have anything they want to say? Any final comments before I wrap it up and turn it back to Tip? Give you folks an opportunity.
Just from the public safety field, I just want to say thank you to you both. You've always been there. I consider you a friend, but most important, your work on this board has been remarkable to public safety. And Ed, you said it. You've always gone after the mission, and you both did. That is about public safety and making this the network for public safety, and that's all you all cared about, and that's true leadership. So, from the bottom of my heart, I just want to say thank you and wish you much success and happiness into the future.
I just, from a public safety standpoint, I'd just like to echo that. As I came on the board, your welcoming nature and the ability to spend time speaking with me and bringing me up to speed about this network, the history of this network, where it is and where it needs to go and where it needs to be, has been absolutely phenomenal. I can't say enough about you two gentlemen, wonderful individuals. I consider myself very fortunate to have you as a colleague. And for somebody who's dedicated their life to public safety, I don't think you can even fathom the impact that the two of you have had in the building of this network and how it will affect public safety and how they operate in the future. But most importantly, I don't want to lose sight that you've affected the safety and lives of citizens. Because in the network that you've helped to build and through your leadership, you are serving public safety, but ultimately you're serving public safety so that they can provide the best quality service to the citizens, and that's what you've done. Through your efforts, you've both served to make communities in this nation a lot safer. Thank you very much.
So I too want to add, I'm so glad I can sit by both of you and have learned so much from you, and I echo what Chief Carrizo and what Matt said, and I think you're truly members of the public safety community. So even though you say you're from industry, I think you need to add to that or to your resume that you're truly public safety, because you have learned what we deal with and what we've dealt with our whole lives, and also the vision of what we look at in the future. And with that, I've always told people, once it gets into your blood, whether it's EMS, whether it's fire, whether it's law enforcement, whether it's public safety communications, you can never get rid of it. So you can't wash it off, Ed and Neil. It's there to stay, and you're one of us, and we always will remember that and do everything we can to continue to utilize your advice into the future. So thank you and welcome to this great fraternity of public safety.
Thank you. I can't add much more to that than just it's more than just sentimentality. Your influence here has been essential to the mission of this board, to this organization, and without it, I think we would almost be lost in comparison. The expertise and knowledge that you bring, with the compassion for this work that you do and the complete dedication you've shown, will prove invaluable now and into the future. But the relationship component that you brought to this and bringing us all in and bringing us along and really letting us learn from you and your insights are going to be missed. And we hope you'll continue to stay engaged. But we thank you in particular for your friendship.
I gotta add.
I'd like to make also say something. For Todd and for Ed and for Neil, you know, today our first responders are better connected, they're better protected, and they're more situationally aware because of the great work that you've done. We think about 20 years ago on 9/11, our first responders are able to do the things they must do to protect and defend and take care of our citizens because of the work that you've done. Neil, it's been a real honor to serve under you. You're just an incredible intellect. You're really a treasure for the nation. Ed, I've learned so much from you as well. Just watching how you guide this board and guide this team, your strong leadership has made a huge difference. We'll remember 9/11 for a long time. What we'll forget fast is the great contributions that you've made to this organization. But our first responders will always benefit from the work that you've done. And I just want to personally thank you for the great work that you've done. You are true unsung heroes to this group. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
I just wanted to quickly add, I could definitely ditto echo what everyone said about your positions, but I also wanted to thank both of you guys personally. When I came on the board a year and a half ago, particularly Ed, just the warmth and the inclusion, you actively reaching out to me. I think someone early on in my career, I don't know if you know how important that is for someone, and so I am really, really just blessed to have access to you. And Neil, I don't know if you remember, but the first board dinner that I went to, I sat next to you, and you gave me a whole lesson on wireless wireless service, and you told me 1983, and I was thinking, wow, I was 3. And and I went home and I texted my mom, and I was like, Mom, I think I just talked to the guy that invented wireless. So that was absolutely wonderful, and I'm just really appreciative to be able to glean wisdom from you guys. So thank you.
Well, thank you all. I appreciate that. Just a final note from me. I was very, very fortunate to assume the role of acting CEO, and the guidance that you both gave me was invaluable. Stepping in terms of the political side, as well as obviously the external affairs side that I had fulfilled at the organization before assuming the temporary role as acting CEO. All the whiteboarding sessions that we had, all the strategic thinking sessions that we had, the late night phone calls, everything. It was really invaluable. And I will miss you both. We'll obviously stay in touch. I will certainly miss Ed's reminiscences of Times Square being the center of the world and him guiding us through the subways in New York City as we were up there. Neil, we was more above land in Chicago when we were up visiting you. But thank you again for everything you've done for public safety. Thank you for everything you've done for the staff. Ed, both of you were instrumental in the self-sustaining aspect that was required by law, figuring out the math and the numbers for how we built the business model. That is such a crucial foundational aspect of the organization, and it's unique in government. Nothing has ever been done like that before. And that's quite a remarkable legacy, to think about how we took a $50 billion problem with $7 billion to start and created what we now have today, 2.5 million connections and growing, live in every state and territory. And frankly, the business model that you both helped create is now being followed and copied around the world. There are other countries looking to deploy FirstNet type systems who call us and say, how did you do it? Well, it's because of the two of you. So thank you so much for everything you've done. Mr. Chairman, back to you.
Thank you, Ed.
Thank you, Ed. We're now at the end of our agenda for the day, and we are prepared to adjourn the meeting. May I please have a motion to adjourn?
Mr. Chairman, Darren Jones, I move to adjourn.
And may I have a second?
This is Neil Cox. I second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
If not, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, those of you who participated in the combined board and committee meetings, and to the audience who joined us over WebEx. The meeting is adjourned.